Someone I came across recently had £45,000 of debt. It started out as £35,000, but the 12% interest on it had been doing its thing. They made one phone call. 10 minutes on that phone call, and they walked away owing £25,000. That's a 45% reduction, gone just like that. Now, I'm not saying everyone is going to get that result, but most people don't even know it's possible. They think debt is debt. You owe what you owe. Pay it back or suffer the consequences. But the thing is, debt is negotiable, almost always. And if I were in a position where I was struggling with debt right now, before I paid another penny, I would pick up the phone and have a conversation with my lender. Not to beg, not to make excuses, just to explore what options are actually available for me. Let me explain why this works. There's a reason why lenders will talk to you. We all know that banks and credit card companies are not charities. They're in this to make money. They're businesses. But what most people don't think about is what happens when you stop paying. When you stop paying, when you default, when it all falls apart, then that lender doesn't get their money back either. But they try and salvage what they can. They try and get as much as they can from it. And to do this, they sell it to a debt collection agency for pennies on the pound. And why does a debt collection agency buy it? Because they are experts at recovering money. They deploy techniques to recover more money than a bank or credit card lender probably can. But they need to make a profit too. So if you owe £10,000, they're not going to buy that off the bank for £10,000. They're not going to give the bank all of their money back. They're going to try and buy the rights to that debt as cheaply as possible. They might offer the bank £1,500 for it, which means anything they recover on top is theirs to keep. But we've digressed a bit, so let's get back to what we were talking about. If you default on your debt, then your lender is likely to sell that debt to a debt collection agency for pennies on the pound. I've seen figures of 10p, 15p, and even less for every pound owed. So if you owe £10,000 and completely default, then like I said earlier, they may only be able to recover £1,000 or £1,500 from the debt when they sell it on. That's a massive loss for your lender. But if you call them and said, look, I'm struggling, what can we work out here? Then they have an incentive to work with you, a genuine incentive, because getting something from you is almost always better for them. They'll recover more money from you directly than they will if they were to sell this debt on to a debt collection agency. And this is the bit that people don't get. This isn't about sympathy. This is just business. And lenders, by their very nature, are good at risk management. That's all this is, risk mitigation, risk management. So what happens when you make that call? Right, so let's talk about what you might actually get from this conversation. The first thing they might offer you is a payment plan. This is where they restructure what you owe into smaller, more manageable monthly payments, perhaps over a longer period of time. In this scenario, your monthly payment drops and you can likely breathe easier again for a little while. The second thing that might be on offer is frozen interest. This is honestly one of the bigger ones if you can get it. Let's say you're paying £200 a month on a credit card and £150 of that is interest. Well, that means that you're barely touching the balance every month. Your £200 every month is going into their pocket more than reducing how much you owe them. But if they freeze the interest, then your entire £200 monthly payment is going towards reducing the amount you owe them. All of it's going towards that. And this means you'll be debt-free with that lender so much faster. The third option they might offer you is a reduced settlement. This is what happened in the story I mentioned at the start. The lender agreed to accept less than what was owed if it was paid back within a shorter time frame. 45k became 25k. They got their money faster and the borrower saved £20,000. And sometimes your lender might even offer to move you to a different product entirely. Maybe a lower interest rate loan to consolidate everything you owe. Something that just makes the whole thing more manageable. Now, not every lender will offer all of these options, and some might offer a mix of these, but you'll never know until you ask. Now, here's what I would say if I was calling my lender today. And this is where people get stuck, and I get it. They don't know what to say. They feel embarrassed. They think they'll be judged in some way. But the thing is, the person on the other end of the phone deals with these sorts of things every day. All day, every day. This is their job. You're the first person who's struggling to call them, and you won't be the last either. I'd keep the conversation pretty simple. Something like, hi, I'm calling because I'm struggling to keep up with my payments. I want to pay what I owe, but I'm struggling at the moment. Can you tell me what options are available to me to help me manage this a little bit better? That's kind of it. You don't need a script. You don't need to rehearse. No one's trying to catch you out. Be honest about where you're at and ask for what help is available. The key thing is you're not blaming the lender for you getting into this position. You know that you owe them money. You know that you signed up for something to borrow from them in the first place, and you're just in a bit of a tough situation. And this isn't a short-term situation. You see it lasting quite a while if you don't get help. And that's the key. The lender needs to feel like they won't get their money back, or there's a risk of them not getting their money back if they don't help you. You're not trying to dodge your responsibility. You signed up for something, you've borrowed that money, no one's held a gun to your head and forced you to borrow that money. You're actually asking for help to meet your responsibilities. Most lenders have dedicated teams for this. They might call it financial difficulties, hardships, or or even collections, depending on how far things have gone. But they will have a process for this. If you get someone who isn't helpful, then ask to speak to someone else, or just hang up and call back at another time. Just like when you sign up for a mobile phone contract, or you sign up for anything, or you try and get yourself out of something when you're negotiating. Just hang up and try someone else. You might get someone later who's more flexible, or just plain nicer. Now, I want to talk a little bit about why I think people don't do this. I think there are two main reasons why people don't make this phone call. The first is shame. Debt feels personal. I get it. It feels like admitting failure. And calling someone, anyone, to admit you can't pay feels like you're saying that out loud. But here I'm going to invite you to think about this in a different way. Is it more of a failure to make one uncomfortable phone call, or to spend the next 5 years paying interest on interest while your financial situation gets worse? The second reason is fear. Fear of being told no. Fear of being judged. Fear that somehow making that call will make things worse. But the reality is, the answer is already no if you don't ask. That's the default. You're already in the situation you're in. The call can only make things better or keep it the same. It cannot make things worse. And that story I mentioned earlier, the person who got their debt reduced by 45%, they said something that stuck with me. They said they didn't even want to make that call. They were embarrassed. They just wanted to ignore their debt and hope it went away. But they leaned into that being uncomfortable. They made the call anyway. 10 minutes, £20,000 saved. Now, I know some of you might be asking, when should I make this call? I don't know when's the optimum time. Well, if you're watching this and you've clicked on this video, then you're probably already behind on payments, or know that you're going to struggle to make them. If that's you, then make the call now, today. Don't wait. Open your phone or a browser on your PC or Mac, search for your lender's phone number and phone them. If you're watching this and you're managing only just, still make the call. You don't have to be in crisis to be able to explore your options. In fact, the earlier you have this conversation, the more options will be typically available for you. Lenders in the UK are regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA. They have obligations to treat customers fairly. You'll probably have heard that phrase, treat customers fairly. And that especially applies to those in financial difficulty. So this isn't a favor they're doing you. This is part of how they're supposed to operate. But as we talked about earlier, they are a business, so they might not always advertise this fact. And to be fair, some do, and some do really well, but not all of them do as well as they could. And I've said this in another video before, but just to ram the point home, if you've ever had any issues with your lender in the last 12 months, then remember you can also put in a complaint. If you think the lender's done something wrong, or they've got the services wrong, or the service to you hasn't been as good as you'd expected it to be, put in a complaint. Now, as I said, I've covered this before, but financial companies are covered by the Financial Ombudsman. If a complaint isn't resolved by the lender directly, and you end up escalating to the Financial Ombudsman, then the company has to pay a fee, sometimes over £600 per complaint. So again, the lender or bank or credit card company, whatever, has an incentive to resolve the complaint before it gets that far. I've received financial compensation for minor statement issues. Now, of course, it has to be a genuine complaint, but if you do receive anything, remember to put that directly towards your debt. It's not an excuse to go spend more. This is a debt video after all. Most debt content, including the stuff I've made before, focuses on how to pay off your debt in the best way. You know the stuff. Like list all of your debts in a spreadsheet, order it by the interest rate you're paying, overpay the expensive ones first, automate the rest, that sort of stuff. That still works. That's still the foundation. And if you're interested in that stuff, I'll link to my debt series in the description below, so you can go and check that out after this video. But this is the step that almost comes before all of that. Before you throw another pound at your debt, find out if you can reduce what you actually owe in the first place. One phone call, 10 minutes, maybe even 20 minutes, could save you thousands and months or even years of payments. Remember, the answer is already no if you don't ask. So ask. If you want the full breakdown on how to eliminate your debt once you've had that conversation, then watch this next.